How was service yesterday?
It was great.
It's always so. I will say this: I am growing in my relationship with Christ because I have missed. I still think. Is the audio fine? I still think I've only missed church since we launched maybe 8 times out of the 9 years. No, that doesn't count sabbatical. So I missed 4 for sabbatical.
Yeah.
So besides that, where I'm like actively doing ministry somewhere else, I preached at this church in Prescott 5 times. Mm-hmm. This was the first time I was so not worried about how everything was going. I was like, it's gonna be a great day. I didn't even check in. Hey, did you get the computer? Hey, it's a well-oiled machine, brother.
It is. It's nerve-wracking though, because I think, and this is going to sound negative, but I promise it's going to end positive. But there is a loss of, it's not even energy, because I don't even think it's the energy that you bring. I just think that people feel, no, it's not that. I do think
it's nothing that would give you a compliment. So
yeah,
let me think.
I'm trying really hard not to honor you. Well, in my mind, this was actually more honoring because it's not like you're doing something intentional to bring like an energy when you come.
Yeah.
It's more like when you're not there, there is a felt sense of loss, like something is missing. And in the past, that's been really hard to reconcile with. I think to keep our church, to keep Sunday feeling like a happy day, even if everything goes well.
Yeah.
In the past, I've felt the burden of trying to figure out ways to like make everyone see like, no, this is okay. And I think this one, and I remember recently there was one time that you missed. Oh,
in Florida, when I was in Florida,
yes,
right?
That one was awful. I didn't like that day.
That was a terrible
That was
day.
an awful
Can we
day.
actually?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that
Let's
to
talk about
begin
that.
with.
That's a good.
No, okay. I think that's wonderful because that has everything to do with the second service.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that. But what else?
But all that to say, you not being there yesterday, I don't think it dampened the mood as much as I was
great.
expecting, which I guess is not a compliment to you, but it's
I think it is.
It's a good thing.
It's hopefully, you invest in people. Tone setters make everything better or worse. You want to disciple people into that. But
Yeah.
I will also say, to be fair to you, no matter who you are,
Yeah.
if there's just a system in place. There's a culture. I think no matter how hard you try not to, and I think some churches do better at it than others. But when you hear like, oh, the lead teaching pastor's not there, there's immediately, even if they don't know anything about you, there's just immediately like I remember I did that in college. There was a pastor that I was going to this church that I interned at, and it was the associate, and I remember going, and then it was like one of the best sermons I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But I was grateful I was like willing to give him that benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
But you can see the room go like, oh man,
Yeah, deflate.
it's not the main guy.
Yeah.
But I think we do enough teaching team that's not as much of a thing either.
Yeah, I think preaching as the associate is very interesting because I have to know my place. Like I can't, that's not the time to introduce like a brand new concept to our church or like go to. Yeah, I'm always really.
You do a
wary
good job of
that.
summarizing. Here's what Pastor Trey has been going. Here's where we're going next. You do a way better job of summarizing than me. I'm just like, this is a new week. But I think I really appreciate every time we put you in because it's like, okay, here's the big picture.
Yeah, that's one of my, honestly, it's a way to kind of take up some time. But it's a really helpful, I think it gives me an opportunity to kind of set the foundation. But I think, the expectations for the associate are either really high or really low.
Right.
Because it's either like, oh, well, you don't preach every week. So you better hit
a home run, brother,
to preach that, to prep this. It better be good. Or expectations are super low in that, oh, you don't do this that often. It's just 20 minutes in and out. And so for the first few years, I had a hard time trying to figure out who am I playing to, who am I preaching to. And then after a while, you just kind of, and I think a lot of that came along with me figuring out my own tone and my own voice.
Yeah.
I tried to copy you for a long time, not intentionally, but just because I thought this is what our people are used to. So I had to, whenever I would try to come up with rhymes.
Try to rhyme.
It was so bad.
I don't do that as much anymore.
You don't, but that's what people knew you for at the time. And so I felt a little bit more freedom to exercise what I felt were my unique set of like preaching skills. And I think it's fun. I don't know how people feel, but yeah.
I will say I've been trying to give you more preaching opportunities and you've said no. So
what?
Yeah.
That's everyone you've said I've said yes to. Which one have I said no to? I was supposed to preach for you on the 21st, but you switched it with this
Oh,
past.
is that what it was?
Yeah. So I still preached for you. It was just a different day.
Okay.
Because I'm preaching.
Because you're just preaching a lot this summer, not for us. So
I'm doing a lot of guest
you were like,
preaching.
and you're moving. So you're like, honestly, man, I can't do that week.
It was one more week you're going to ask me to in July. I remember.
Yeah.
But so between June and July, I have 11 sermons that I was preaching.
Yeah.
And I think we were just going to move. And I was like,
and you have a legitimate reason to
can I
say,
just give me like a week or two to,
yeah.
Anyways.
No, I do you preach 12 times a year at least? And do you know?
I've never done the math. I know the rotation is every 6 weeks, but sometimes it's every 4.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's a little longer. So I don't know what it equates to.
That's kind of a new school thing. So the old school was like, no, the lead pastor, you don't call anybody a teaching pastor. It's the lead pastor or senior pastor.
Right.
And they preach 52 times a year.
Yeah.
51 maybe. And then like, New Year's, somebody else.
The youth pastor comes in and
Yeah, but man,
I think there's a lot of
that.
value to having a variety of voices that you trust and are trained and things like that.
Well, and let's be real.
Yeah.
I don't like bagging on pastors though, so I don't know if I want to say this. I feel like I have to. Now it just sounds worse. Some are fearful of allowing other people to preach because it's like, what if they show me up?
Yeah.
I would say those are minority people. Don't worry.
Yeah. But not minorities, but the minority. Anyways.
Oh my gosh. Should we just cut this beginning part?
No, that was good.
All right, let's talk about, so the last time, so I didn't even, I guess you gave a summary of, or no, we'll talk about Sunday soon, like how it actually went. But let's talk about the worst Sunday with me not there. So that was,
May?
It was 2 weeks after Easter.
Oh, so April.
Right? Yes, it was April.
Yeah.
Because Florida was beautiful.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's only beautiful in April.
Yeah, you had like the best weekend of your life.
Best weekend of my life, man. The beach was just perfect. And I said, the water's a little cold. And they said, well, you want it cold because if it gets warm, hurricanes come. So you want it cold. Stop complaining. But yeah, I was able to preach and they asked me to preach an hour each time I was up there.
Oy.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
And those college students were leaning in.
Eating it up.
I love college students.
Did you have to like get their attention with a hook or was it just kind of
I did the
there?
hook.
Okay.
I did a hook, even though I feel like the room was prepped. They did a really good job with worship, just preparing. And the whole conference was called Deeper. So like you were coming because I want to go deeper. So, but I still did the hook. Anyways, about you though. So that was it the second or third Sunday after Easter?
It's all a blur. I don't know.
Okay. Talk about your experience. Cause you said in the intro that it wasn't amazing.
I'm
going to look up the calendar because I will confirm.
Okay. A lot of things happened. One, you were out of town, obviously, so that meant I had to preach and kind of do the whole shebang.
It was the second Sunday after Easter. So not right after, the second Sunday after.
It was the second Sunday.
So we had Easter.
1 week.
Big week right after that.
So this was
and then that one.
Only our third week doing 2 services.
Good way to put it. Yes.
This was only our third week doing 2 services. It was my first time preaching twice and then doing growth track after each. Yeah. So usually when you're gone and we did 1 service, being there, like being the guy and kind of running things wasn't a big deal. But then having to preach, do growth track, preach, do growth track. I don't think I was playing.
Which you did yesterday, too.
Which I did yesterday. Shelby was also out of town for a meet for like 4 or 5 days. So I had the kids all by myself, which usually isn't a huge deal, but I was already a little stressed about preaching. You were out of town.
You were losing your voice?
Jordan was out of town. Everyone was gone. I got sick. I got the flu earlier that week. And then...
and you never told me.
And I never told you because I didn't want to... It's like I'm not gonna complain.
Yeah.
You know.
No, thank you.
Yeah, because
made my weekend the best weekend ever.
Ruin your vacation.
Hey, it wasn't vacation; it was work.
Sure. So then I ended up losing my voice a little bit. Had a ton of like people give me tea, and it was all really good. And then. Not that this was more of like the cherry on top. This doesn't define what makes a good or bad Sunday. But we had, I think, like 20 people total.
No. So that was the fun part. So I was on my way home. So the flight thing didn't work out where I can come. They wanted me to have an appearance to the church on Sunday, even though I preached Friday and Saturday. And so I thought, you know what, that's fine. Another opportunity just for our church to not be dependent on some of the things I do. And so all that to say, I remember being in the airport while service was happening. And you weren't obviously texting me because you were preaching. Or maybe you were. You were giving me like how it went right after. I was finding out. I was finding out the numbers. And I was like, oh, that's low. The first service.
Yeah.
And then the second service, I was like, maybe it'll pick up. And it was low. Now, it wasn't 20 people. We still hit over 100. It was like 115. But for our expectations, for our momentum of going to 2 services, when we planned a worst case scenario of pulling the trigger to become a 2-service church, that was the day. Like, that was the, did we do the right thing?
Yeah. I was grateful. Part of me was glad you weren't there because I didn't want, I wasn't sure how you were going to read that whole situation. If it was going to be like, if you were going to be really discouraged, and I was obviously really discouraged, but then I was also really relieved. When I got home, I was like, I'm just going to rest, recover my voice, and not pretend like this weekend ever. It ended up being good. I don't want to downplay it. I preached. And that's always a hard thing too, is like, I always get more energy when there's more people in the room, obviously.
Yeah, it's hard to not be that way.
It's really hard to preach the same way when more than half the seats are empty.
Yeah.
And I wish that it wasn't, I had the skill set to just deliver what I feel God has prepped me to deliver.
Even I guess skill set's a good word, but it's just confidence. It's just like no matter what, no matter who's in the room. But also there's wisdom of saying, I'm not going to preach the same way to an empty room as a full room. I remember I did a youth conference I was helping put together. It was kind of like, hey, everybody's in San Diego, so I was a youth pastor in San Diego. We are doing this thing. Can your church join? I said, cool, low friction. I don't have to do much. I'll bring my youth. Well, I was the only one who brought youth, and it was a very low event, but they built it like this huge thing. And so the preacher came up, and he preached as if there was 2,000 people in the room.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, just like, we don't even need a microphone at this point. There's like 20 of us.
Yeah.
Like, take off the mic, come down, and let's just read the room a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's another part of it sometimes. But yeah, so you and I went through all this study. We knew it was a step of faith.
Yeah.
It was a risk, but also it was dumb if we didn't to go to 2 services.
Yeah.
It's fun to talk about now because of just how it's gone well. If you're listening in that part, like, it has gone well, so we can talk more honest about how that felt a couple months ago, or what's April, May, June, July, 3 months ago. But I remember thinking, oh no, this experiment didn't work, because we had a huge day on Easter. And then the next week was huge. And everybody said, after Palm Sunday, you have Palm Sunday, Easter Sunday, then Bomb Sunday. It's usually the next week after Easter, everybody's gone, but they weren't. We're like, this is momentum. This is great. But then it was the third one. And there was a bunch of theories we had. There's a lot of people actually sick during that time.
Yeah.
I did post a lot about being away in Florida, so that may have tipped the scales on just a couple people. But then, it was just a whirlwind of just terrible things. Now, we don't make attenders, we make disciples. And so that's what calmed my spirit, just listing the names of people who weren't there. Oh, they're with us. We're discipling these folks. Everything's fine. But it was a bit of a, did we make the right move? Is this our new reality? And thankfully it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always a weird thing too. This might be too transparent, but obviously the source of anxiety that I felt after that was like, how much of this is my fault? Like, how much of this falls on me? Are people going to look back at this and be like, well, Caleb,
remember April 14th?
Do you remember when Caleb preached and there were 10 people in the congregation? So it was a rough week, but then I think, we bounced back. Obviously, there was a lot of things happening. We
bounced back the very next week. Everything was okay.
People were overcoming illnesses and traveling and things like that. So it was good. And I think, reminding ourselves, this is why we say that our goal is not to make attenders. Because if our confidence and our commitment to the gospel rose and fell based on attendance, we wouldn't have made it past like year 2.
Yeah, we'd be very, very, up and down in our emotions. Like, good week, we're great. Bad week, we're the worst. Yeah, we've learned to not base our confidence in that at all. So that's fun. But that was just I feel like that was a good faith exercise, because I remember saying, Lord, I trust you. I believe this is the right thing. Whatever happens, we're going to just keep pushing forward. And so that was great. So how was Sunday? So this was it was a good day.
Yeah, this was the opposite.
I received a lot of encouraging text messages while I was gone. So just give me a brief overview of how, I hope you guys enjoy this. Comment below, behind the scenes, if you are all right with us talking about things like this, or if you want us just to go to straight theology, we'll never talk like this ever again. Let us know.
We'll never do this again. This is a huge mistake. Sunday was great. I mean, again, this doesn't make or break a Sunday, but obviously having more people in the room while I was preaching was really encouraging.
And the second service was the larger one,
which is odd. Yeah, it was. The second service was way more full. Maybe not way more full, but noticeably more full than the first service, which has never happened. I don't think. Has that happened?
A couple times.
Okay, never mind then.
Yeah. But it's not the norm for sure.
It's not the norm. I think there was a lot of good energy. Worship was great. I love where our band is at. I don't feel like I need to, not that I needed to be there, but I think that it was hard for me to not be a part of it. And now it's really easy for me not to be a part of it because everyone's so talented. And a lot of the people that we brought on have been really good. A lot of visitors who seemed really positive. We do party with the pastors after each service, and I think what you want at the end of party is obviously you want to have a chance to explain what our church has to offer. Like, here's the best stuff we have, and then kind of relate it to them. So trying to figure out, like, here's how we think this can add value to you if you commit to our church. But then you also want to help them engage a little bit and make them feel comfortable asking questions in that space. And you want to leave just a little bit for them to wonder, like a little more, like, tell me a little more about the practices, or explain your groups again. And so in a best case scenario, party with the pastors is our chance to give them all that stuff, and for them to kind of take those bites a little bit and say, like, I actually want to know more about this. And we had that in all the services.
That's cool. I was really encouraged to hear about the conversations that were happening. I love the interest people are having in groups. And so that's going to be a big emphasis for us this month as we prepare for the August launch, and then the September launch as well for some newer groups. So that's on you, man. Good luck. But remember, with party, the first couple times we did more nuts and bolts. Here's like how we do all the little things. And then we finally learned, let's go bigger picture. Let's talk more about values, more of the why. And that seems to have been a lot more productive, and people understanding if this place is a good fit for them or not.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Growth Track's a little more nuts and bolts.
Growth Track is a little more nuts and bolts, but I think what we found too is when you start with the nuts and bolts, people, at least what I notice, is people kind of find reasons why they can't commit to the nuts and bolts. But if you start with vision and you give the values of our church, like, no one's going to say, I don't want to go to a church that puts Jesus first. Like, no one's going to.
Some will,
sure.
Not, yeah.
So I think people can catch on to that pretty easily. And then from there, when you get to the nuts and bolts of, like, here's what it would look like for you to integrate groups into your schedule, people, I think, are a little more willing because they know the why behind all of it. It's, the famous start with why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm glad it was a great Sunday. How long do you think your sermon was?
First one was shorter.
I should have asked you which one to upload. I uploaded the second one.
Second one was longer. Second one I would have guessed is probably, I would say 40.
The answer's 40, folks.
Nice.
Nailed it.
It.
I listened to it yesterday.
Okay.
On my way to...
is this the feedback loop happening
in real time?
In real time.
No, it would be hard for me to give feedback because I listened to it at 2x speed.
Yeah.
Because we were on our way. I had to do stuff with I have family in town. So I was like, I have to listen to Caleb's sermon today.
Right.
And so I listened to it, and it was great. I really appreciate I think what's really helpful, and I notice this more and more just as I explore what some other people are doing. I always appreciate how you give a really good big picture of the Bible. And I think a huge error we make in presenting the gospel is just so personal, which of course it's personal.
Yes.
But we don't see how Israel has to do with it. And it's fascinating because when you see Peter's presentation of the gospel every time in Acts, it is so much about the whole story. And so when you ask somebody, hey, what's the gospel? Jesus died for your sins. Peter writes that too.
That's true.
First Peter 3:18, but he would say, why do we have to rush? Why does this have to be an elevator pitch?
Yeah.
Let's look at the full grand story. And I think that's what you did yesterday to a degree.
That's what I tried to do. It's really tough because you do the elevator pitch method came, and I this is all in the back of my
history
mind.
of this.
The elevator pitch, I think, was, to my understanding, I might be off on this. My understanding is that became really popular after World War II.
I've heard that as well.
Around the Billy Graham era, kind of that.
I'm not talking bad about Billy Graham.
No,
let's be clear.
Caleb's going to.
You
Just
can tell
wait.
I've been roasted by YouTube before. I'm always thinking ahead.
yeah.
Like, I know what before you hit that comment, okay, keep going.
No, it was good. It was really helpful. Obviously, the revivals that happened around that time were unparalleled, I think. But I think what that's done is it's sort of a byproduct of that has been that the gospel has been reduced to just this personal idea that Jesus died for you, and if you believe in him, then you'll go to heaven when you die. And that's great. I believe that's true. If that wasn't clear in my sermon yesterday, that's on me. That's absolutely true.
To use Dallas Willard language, that would be like barcode Christianity.
Right. If that's all that the gospel is and there's nothing else to it, then you
get what you have today in such a large mass. Just
it's also confusing because that's the gospel. So my personal experience, and I didn't have time to share this in the sermon. I don't know if it would have been wise to, but that was the gospel that I grew up believing in and learning. And I'm so grateful for that. And I believe that's foundational and that's absolutely true.
It's not less than, it's more.
Exactly. Because at some point that's not enough. Like, what do I do? Like, I still can't overcome, my anxiety or my temptations or whatever. Like, I see who I want to be and I can't be that. Do I just have to wait till I die until I'm made perfect in heaven? Like, that doesn't seem like good news. So I think what Peter does is really fascinating because he starts off, he doesn't start with creation, but he uses language that implies like, no, Jesus is king of the universe. That's where he starts. And I think that's really telling because he's talking to Cornelius, who's a Roman Gentile, who's a Roman centurion in the military, who would have seen Caesar as the king. And Peter says, no, God appointed Jesus as king. He anointed him with the Holy Spirit and with power. Mm-hmm. And then he kind of goes from there and he ends with whoever believes in him is forgiven of their sins because of the name of Jesus. So yeah, it's a cosmic story. It's a grand story. When you follow Jesus, that's my whole point is you're coming into a community that has a purpose and a function and to live out that purpose, that's just as much part of the gospel.
Yeah. I had one problem with your sermon.
Okay.
Caesarea? I think it's Caesarea.
Did I say Caesarea? Caesarea?
I love it because
I bet you
I'm the one who
Caesarea.
I mispronounce more than you. So whenever you do, I'm so happy.
I'm going to pull up the Nestle Aland Greek New Testament.
Well, Caesar, Caesarea, it's a city named after him. And I've been there. And they told me it was Caesarea.
Who's they?
Bro, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I bet it is.
Beautiful place.
Anyways. All right. Well, if that's the only thing you had an issue with, then I feel good. I think. I don't know.
I was like, oh, but then my first instinct is he's right, I'm wrong. So I'm like, shoot, I've been saying Caesarea wrong.
Did you look it up?
Wait a minute. I think it's Caesarea.
Okay. Well, you can keep talking while I look this up.
Okay. Well, I just really want to see what you come up with. But yeah, so as he is doing important research on Logos, probably. So what he's communicating is really essential. What is it? You're happy because I'm wrong? I saw that smile.
So this is Logos. Look at that.
Okay, folks, it's in the Greek. It has a K.
Is it Tain Caesaron? How well do you remember Greek?
The problem is we're not Greek.
Okay. That's clearly...
I wish... Because they say it, there used to be like a pronounce button. But even if it's going to pronounce the Greek version, I want the American version.
Okay, so mine was authentic. Give me this. All right, we're done. We just lost all of our... Everyone...
I can't believe that. Comment below. Which one's right? Quesadilla or Quesadilla makes me want to go to a Mexican food restaurant and get queso chips.
That's on you. Yeah. Let me look at the Nestle lawn.
Okay, we're moving on.
Okay. Yeah. Caesarion.
Okay, well, can you, because I'm going to do my research now. Explain the 4-chapter versus the 18-chapter gospel that you like to
It's not original to me. Yeah, I think when we've explained the gospel to people, it usually kind of follows the structure of the Bible. And so in the past, what we've done is we've said that the 4 chapters of the gospel are creation, fall, redemption, restoration. And so creation obviously covers the creation narrative. You start with God creating the world to be good. Humanity was meant to be good. Evil and sin and death and wickedness were not a part of God's original design. But those things are brought into the world in chapter 2 of the gospel, which is the fall. So Adam and Eve, instead of living under the rule and reign of God, They seize autonomy for themselves, and they introduce, because of Satan and the temptation of their flesh, they introduce death and evil and wickedness into the world. So then the entire Old Testament can be summed up as just how rampant and hard to deal with sin actually is, but God promising to redeem creation by sending his Messiah. And so you get redemption, which is the 4th chapter, and that starts in the gospel. So Jesus comes to redeem everything, and then you have the working out of that redemption from Matthew all the way to Jude, and then in Revelation you get the final chapter, which is the restoration of the entire world. That is the 4-chapter gospel in 2 minutes. What did they say?
SpeechModification.com presents how to pronounce Caesarea. Caesarea.
That's like the least Greek.
Okay, so when I Googled it, people say both. So if you go to just straight up Google.
Yeah.
Caesarea.
Did you hear it?
Yeah.
Caesarea.
So, and Google's wrong. So
Okay.
we all know that.
Well, the Nestle line.
So
is
we're
right.
both right.
I guess.
What is truth?
Don't.
Sorry, I'm happy on Mondays.
Yeah, I can tell. You're happy.
Okay.
That you're wrong? Is that?
No, that I'm right. So Caesarea, no, 4-chapter gospel. So yeah, creation, fall, redemption, restoration.
Yeah.
That's one way to package it. We say it's 4 because it's quicker that way, and it's actually, I talk about that in my book, The Non-Anxious Pastor. So that's why I lean towards 4 chapters, because I already wrote about it. You argue a 6th chapter, which is a little more new. 7, 18, a little more nuanced.
28 chapters of the gospel. It's a little more nuanced, and it takes its shape more from the structure of the Bible than maybe the 4 chapters of the gospel.
It's more biblical.
I didn't want to say that. I'm glad you did. I would say that the fullest, as much as you can summarize the gospel using the biblical narrative, is creation, fall, Israel, redemption, Jesus, so the Gospels, church, and then restoration. So that's 6. And that's not original to me. I heard that somewhere. It was
None of this is original to us.
Yeah, Tim Mackey or something maybe. And it basically just covers, so creation is the same. The fall happens in Genesis 3, but after that, the rest of the New Testament, or Old Testament.
Genesis 12 is the start of Israel.
Yeah.
What's the answer?
What's the purpose of Israel? What is their function? What are they meant to do? And I cover all that in the sermon.
They have
yesterday.
like prophets, priests, and kings, which point to the ultimate Messiah. There's a lot. Yeah.
Jesus comes. Jesus gets his own
And
chapter.
what you said, Israel is they're separate but stay open. Is that the phrase? You see that in the Old Testament.
Yeah, they're meant to live separate as a separate nation that doesn't look like the other nations. They follow the Torah law so they can be set apart. But they're meant to stay open and welcome those who are willing to follow the law as one of their own.
In The Mission of God by Christopher Wright, he says in the Old Testament, I don't remember the science between centrifugal and centripetal. Essentially, in the Old Testament, it's come and see.
Right.
So Queen of Sheba heard about the different, like, who is Solomon with his wisdom? So they would come in, Naaman the Syrian would come in to the Jordan. And then, was it the Jordan that he dipped himself in 7 times? Yeah. And then New Testament, when Jesus comes to bring redemption, especially now with the church, it's go and tell. So now it's going out. But it's still, while you're going out, stay separate, but open.
Yeah, in the world, not of it. So don't demonize the world. Although we use that language, it can get kind of confusing. The people of the world that we're meant to spread the good news to are not our enemies. And I think that's one of the issues you see with Israel growing more and more bitter towards the Gentiles in the Old Testament, especially. They would assimilate, but they would also isolate. And so they had kind of lost sight of their mission to be the vessel through which God is going to renew and redeem the whole world.
So creation, fall,
Israel,
Jesus
comes to do what Israel could not do.
Yeah, what Israel could not do. Now the church, we're called to
go and
do
tell.
the book of Acts.
Yeah. So it goes from Acts to Jude, which are all letters basically detailing how to live in community and be the church. And they're all communal too. I think we individualize the letters as well, which is helpful. You should read it as an individual, but these are all corporate letters meant to be read within the context of a church community.
And we are about to enter the part of Acts where we can say, oh, this is where Ephesians was written. And this is where, like, you're really starting to see the timeline where the rest of these letters start to fit along chronologically, which is pretty fascinating.
Have fun with that. That confuses me.
That's why you're preaching the next 18 Sundays.
Got it. Awesome. Cool.
No, it is confusing because there is some discrepancies too.
Yeah.
But you can at least say, oh, Paul was in Ephesus. Well, we know after he left there, he's going to write this letter to the Ephesians.
You see, how Ephesus starts. I think in Acts 17, it's a riot. It's crazy. All this stuff happens. The Corinthian church, you see how that gets started.
Philippi, all those.
That's all really fascinating.
Yeah, so that we can at least point that out. Okay, the last thing as we close is, hey, Pastor Caleb, what do we have this coming Sunday that's important for people to know?
There's a name for it. I was going to give the wordy explanation of what's happening. It's Summer Sunday.
What is Summer Sunday?
Wordy explanation. Basically, it's when we're unable to meet physically embodied as the church this Sunday because of new floors that are getting buffered or put in or something. They're doing something to the floors in the cafeteria, which is where we meet. So we just decided to, obviously we can't meet in this space anymore, which is fine. We're gonna have a recorded message.
Just one Sunday.
Just one Sunday. I kept saying, please do not show up Sunday. No one's gonna be there. Don't come. Watch the message online. In 2 weeks, we'll be back.
Yes.
And everything's gonna be normal after that. But this Sunday, we're gonna have a video message that you can tune in and find online on our website. And we're gonna email that out and everything. So there should be no way for you to miss it.
Yeah.
We're gonna have like a little guide for you to potentially go through.
And we're also putting a sign out on campus in case anybody does show up. They'll see a sign that says, "Hey, it's Summer Sunday. Go online to watch."
Trey's gonna be there personally, pushing cars away. So
probably will be.
Yeah.
No, I'm preaching at another church, so I'm preaching multiple times.
Are you preaching at another church?
Yeah. Somebody said, "Hey, since you're not preaching live that day, can you fill in the pulpit?" Summer's a huge time where pastors are looking for pastors to fill in the pulpit. So I was like, cool, let's run it back.
All right.
Yeah. But I'll be also preaching for Passion Creek Sunday.
Right.
Yeah. We're not going to just make it go live at 10 a.m. I'm just going to upload it. That morning it'll go live at like 6 a.m. and you just watch it whenever you want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to try to make it where, oh no,
everyone has to watch it at the same time. Yeah. Freedom, flexibility.
Yeah.
It's summer.
It's summer Sunday. Cool. Anything else you'd like to cover, Pastor Caleb?
I don't think so.
All right.
I thought that was the end. I thought you were just like, okay, and then it would cut.
This was a good podcast. So also put some things on your calendar. July 28th is a huge Sunday for us. It's Vision Sunday as we get ready for the fall. As you guys know, school starts around July 22nd for some folks. So July 28th, we're excited for that. We also have that day a member class after the second service. So make sure you sign up for that and get ready to learn what it means to be a covenant member at Passion Creek. There's a lot of privileges. Among them are, Lord willing, the Lord gives us an opportunity to get a building. We take the members together and we vote on such things. Also, July 28th that night, we have a youth interest meeting. These are for the leaders who are interested in getting involved as we pray and prepare to start a youth group. That's the important announcement stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did the announcement video work all right?
Yeah.
I heard it was lagged.
There was it was like a 1 or 2 second lag mismatch between the audio and the video. But.
So I'm worried this podcast will have that lag as well because I use the same kind of technology. Jordan told me that, and I'm like, what is happening? So we're about to find that out. So, all right, grace and peace, everybody. Go out and share the gospel.
Bye.